Don't sweat the technique. Well, some of you would know that song. It's one of my favorite songs of all time. And I remember telling my wife on the way to our house in Park City, I said, that's it. And I let her listen to the lyrics. And when I said the lyrics to her, she just looked at me like I was absolutely crazy. And, but I was excited about it. She didn't understand. But I want to read them to you today because I think it's a really cool thing. Scientists try to solve the context. Philosophers are wondering what's next. Now, obviously, I'm not a rapper. I wish that I could. But see, my pops always told me that the hardest thing that we would ever do in our lives would be to let go. And that was to let go of the fact that we could find a technique, we could find something that would always be universally beneficial in every situation. And see, here's where I failed. When we built our company, we had systems. And those systems, I was a systems guy. I loved them. I loved efficiencies. And sometimes I got so strong on the system and didn't allow it to adapt that I didn't take into account each and every person that was coming into the situation. You see, for us, as we built kids, I had a system. Like, if you do this and you do this for long enough, then you'll get this. And I would tell them every single time, and I would get so frustrated. Why aren't you doing it? But then I realized not everyone came from the same place. Not every single person was dealing with the exact same thing. So I had to look at this situation individually. And although I could have principles in line, I couldn't have the method be exactly the same. And my buddy, Rob, called me yesterday. And he was like, man, I'm so frustrated because I'm supposed to be generous. Like I've heard, at church, I've heard, from a relationship with God, if that is, then you got to be generous. But there was a situation where I knew the person was going to take advantage of my generosity. But I felt so bad because I actually didn't act in generosity. I acted off this. And I said, I encouraged him. And I said, God's truths are the same yesterday, today, and forever, although his methods will always change. And so the method isn't always going to be the same. It's not always going to be exactly, exactly where you need to be able to go. So focus in on a personal relationship with him and what is right anyway. What's right in that situation? That's what he kept telling me. Like, I don't know what's right. I don't know if I did what's right. Well, what I could decipher throughout my experiences is that the only way to figure out what is right in that moment is to stay in contact with the one who knows what is right. And who's that? It's the one that created us all, right? It's the one who created us all, and he will guide you exactly where you need to go in that particular situation. Sometimes he'll have you give a glass of water to somebody. Sometimes he'll have you smack somebody upside the head and say, wake up, you shouldn't be doing this. But if you smack the person that was supposed to get the water and you give the water to the person who you're supposed to smack, then you could cause a challenge in that person's life. And the only way we'll know the difference is if we stay in communication with the one person who knows and owns it all and provides it all with his purpose, his plan, and his timing. And so I want to encourage you, Rob. I want to encourage every single one of you. You're constantly trying to do the right thing. You're trying to find out the technique that'll work in every single thing. Learn from my experience. Learn from my boneheadedness that a lot of times will just turn people off. When you add the human element to it, you add circumstances that have a lot of different layers to it. So you can't just use one thing and it work in every single situation. Now, if we took the humans out of it, we could. And when I talked to my friend Michael this morning, he's a CFO for a large credit union, and he's a phenomenal leader. And as a phenomenal leader, he said, I have to take into account where the person's from, where they're at right now, and where I think that they can go. But I've got to do it in that order, or else I put an expiration date on the relationship with that person in my business, and it causes the person to think that I don't really care about them and their situation. Principles will stay the same. Methods will change. Now, here's the cool thing for me and the thing that I get a chance to be able to celebrate today. We are on episode 500 And I racked my brain. I was like, who should I get on? Who could I go after? I've had Super Bowl champions. I had Lonnie Paxton. I had Eddie George. I had John Gordon. I had the general manager of the Tennessee Titans. I've had Stephen Covey. I had the producer for Terminator 2 and True Lies. I had the founder of the E! Entertainment Network. I've had all these amazing people. The number one motivational speaker in the world, Mr. James Dixon. I've had Greg Reed, one of the greatest thought leaders of all time. I've had all these people on the podcast over the course of 499 episodes. Who could I interview for the 500th episode that would like bring the house down? And as I was thinking about it, I was like, man, I should promote it. I didn't. I should have a lead up to it. I didn't. I should create a trailer for it. I didn't. And what God showed me today was the techniques that you've seen in the past of people do for certain things. Don't focus on the technique. Just ask me and I'll tell you the right thing to do. So I believe that I found the absolute perfect guest that has an incredible resume that puts everybody else's resume, although it's good, although I respect everybody, they always ask me what is my favorite episode. Well, I believe today is going to be my favorite episode. I can't wait for you to meet him on episode 500. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for listening to the podcast, watching it, sharing it, commenting on it, all those things. I appreciate you. So why don't we get this party started?
Nothing more on my mind. I got two shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
Episode 500, brought to you by BLING Shine Serum. Adds moisture, strength, and shine. Honestly, this is a nice to do until you use it, and then it'll be a have to do for the rest of your life. You can't overuse it, which is the best part of the product and the worst part of the product. The reason why, because I find that people waste it. It has no weight to it, has no color to it, but it adds moisture, strength, and shine to your hair, and it smells like vacation. For women, for men, it works on your skin, your hair, your nails. It is unbelievable. Number one selling product by far in our company when we had salons all over the country, and Bling was the only one, and it was only available in our salon. So you can check the link and check that out. Episode 500, sponsored by BLING Shine Serum. Moisture, strength, and shine. And every woman needs a little bit of bling in their life. Episode 500. Don't sweat the technique. As I sat the last couple days, I was racking my brain. How can I do 500? Who could I get? Who could I bring on as an interview? And as I sat in my backyard this morning, and I was just I was reading the word, I was doing the thing, and God said, "Why don't you interview me?" And I was like, yeah, but I got to do something that'll help the algorithm, help the people to watch the show, share it, do all the stuff. And He said, "Why don't you interview me?" And I was like, yeah, but that's cool, God, but I don't. And then He said, "Why don't you interview me?" And He took this this song that was "Don't Sweat the Technique" that I used to listen to in my 79 Dodge Colt when we would drive from Gaviota, California to Lompoc, California. And when I would listen to that, I had a tape in, I would turn it up loud, and it was "Don't sweat the technique, don't sweat the technique." Don't get so focused on the technique, because if you focus on that, I'm on to the next one. and I'm on to the next one, and I'm on to the next one. You see, Disney and Apple, they don't care if you sweat their technique, because by the time you adapt their technique into your company, they've already moved on to another one. So they're not holding on to it so tight. Listen to these lyrics again. Scientists try and solve the context. Philosophers are wondering what's next. And what God is saying in this, what he said to me is like, you can study all of the things that have happened before. It doesn't mean that that thing's going to happen. My truth, if you look at all of them, they'll be principle-based. They'll have foundational principles in it. But I could tell you that each and every scenario will be a little bit different, but my truth will be the same yesterday, today, and forever. And if you ever want to test if something is from me, then test it against those principles. But don't get so wrapped up in the way in which it happened that you miss the blessing that I'm trying to bring through the dirty, nasty thing that I'm going to take you through at that time. It's amazing because, you can look at, he speaks to me in so many different areas. Like if you think about, how do we get our crops to grow? Well, we get our crops to grow by going and getting fertilizer. What is fertilizer made of? Manure. What is manure? It's waste. So this waste happens and then it fertilizes the new growth. Well, have you ever had manure or garbage or crap happen in your life? Yes. Well, most of the time, that's going to be the fertilizer for the new crops that are coming. And he's always principle-based in this, and it's incredible because in Proverbs 2, he said to me, I want you to interview me, because there's so many times where people are looking for techniques. They're looking for the magic beans. They're looking for the system and how to figure out what the right thing is to do. But what he was saying is, son, the only way that the right thing will happen, or you'll know the right thing, is if you stay in communication with me on a daily basis, on a minutely basis, on a secondary basis. I don't even know if that's the word that you would use, but second by second. We first start off on, it could be month to month. It could be year to year. You talk to him once a year, talk to him a couple times a year. Then he wants you to go month to month. Then he wants you to go week to week, day to day, minute to minute, hour to hour, whatever it is. But he wants to get down to those seconds where every single thing that you have go on in your life, that you just say, like, what's the right thing for me to do in this time? And when we have that type of communication, it breaks down all walls. And in Proverbs 2, it shows us how to stay in that uninhibited, constant communication that'll break down every single wall that we have. So my first question to God this morning was how? Like how? How do I stay in communication with you? I can't see you. You didn't show up at my door. You didn't knock on my door. You didn't have an outfit on today. And if you did, I wonder what you would be wearing. I wonder if you would have an accent. I a lot of times think that God's voice is Morgan Freeman. You could choose whatever voice you want. Maybe he has an accent. I think Morgan Freeman is kind of cool. He has a booming voice. Maybe he has an English accent. Maybe he has an Australian accent. But I was asking this morning, how? How can I have a relationship with you? How can I stand with you when I can't see you, when I can't touch you, when I can't feel you? And he said in verse 1, accept my words. Accept my words. Now, if you want to do the research on my words, then do the research on it, because the principles and the foundation and the truth will always be there and always have been there, and they continually work out in the way that is aligned with my truth. But I want you to get to a point where you accept my words. The only way that you can is if you experience my words and then see that my actions are in line with them, and then you'll accept them. So in verse 1, he said, accept my words. In verse 1, he also said, once you accept my words, store up my commands. Take those commands, the things that he commanded us to do, and store them up. Store them up, not so you always have to do that exact thing, but that is on your mind, and that is the spirit in which you act. In verse number 2, he said, turn your ear to wisdom. What is wisdom? It's the right use of knowledge. Where do we get wisdom? The beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. What is the fear of God? It's just the respect of God. The only way that you could respect him is if you see his words, you hear them, you research them, and then his actions are in line. Then you'll start to respect him. Once you respect him, he'll give you wisdom. And he said, turn your ear to wisdom, which is the right use of knowledge. In verse 2, he said, apply your heart to understanding. How can I be in touch with, well, apply your heart to understanding, meaning that you put it in the deepest part, that becomes a part of you. Apply your heart to understanding that wisdom. In verse number 3, it's a call out for insight, right? So once we start to have wisdom and we start to have knowledge and we start to have understanding, now we need to have insight. Have you ever had insight into something? We talked about in episode 499 where it was talking about hindsight, right? Imagine if you had insight into something. You had insight into that scenario or into that circumstance. My buddy Rob called me yesterday. I talked about him, and he said, I don't know if I did the right thing. Well, he did the right thing because he has insight in that arena. The thing that I didn't tell you is the scenario that he was talking about. A homeless person approached him and asked him for money. Well, my friend Rob is actually a police officer, so he deals with that person, metaphorically. He deals with that type of person all the time, but he also has dealt with that exact person 4 or 5 times, and those interactions were never good. So he had insight into the situation, and what God was saying is call out for insight. In verse number 3, it says, cry aloud. What's the difference between calling out and crying aloud? Calling out is, hey, McKenna, come down for dinner. Crying aloud is not only that voice, but adding action to that and not stopping until you get the exact result. Sometimes my son will just yell, like, hey, McKenna, come down for dinner. And then there's other times where he says, McKenna, and as he's walking up the stairs and he goes and gets her and brings her down for dinner like he did last night. In verse 4, it says, look for it and search for it. Look for it and then search for it. My son, I get on him about this. He'll roll up in his room. I'll ask him to get something, and then he'll roll up and be like, I can't find it. And him not finding it is just him looking over the top, kind of glazing over the top and being like, oh, I can't see it. But when he truly searches for it, then he finds it. And in verse 5 and 6, it says, let me run these down because I think, number 1, once you accept my words, you store up my commands, you turn your ear to wisdom, you apply your heart to understanding, you call out for insight, you cry aloud for understanding, you look for it and search for it as if it was gold and silver. In verse 5 and 6, then you will understand and find it. And so the how part of it is he runs it down for us. Accept it, store it up, turn your ear towards it, apply it, cry out for it, or call out for it, cry aloud, look for it, and search for it. And then you will find it. So it won't just be, I mean, I've done this before. I've had personal trainer friends. Keith Hale, I love you so much. He's helped me a lot. And they've sent out a regiment, and I'm like, okay, I did the 10 push-ups today. Am I fit? Well, no, I didn't look for it and search for it. I didn't I didn't cry aloud. I called out. I didn't cry aloud. I hadn't even accepted. I didn't go through all these things to be able to get to a point where it's like, then you will understand and you will find it. And so my second question for God was like, why? Why should I go through all those things? And his answer was simple. In verse 7 through 10 in Proverbs 2, he said, doing the right thing always wins. Now, it doesn't win on your timing. It doesn't win and make you feel good all the time. But he said, always, if you plant the right seed, the right crop will come. But it takes time. And there's been times where I've thought, oh my gosh, am I doing right? Am I doing right? And I've been asking God, like, take away the desire. Take away the desire to do it if you don't want me to do it. And then he keeps the desire there, and I don't get what I want right then. And then I start to question and say, is this really the right thing? And he keeps saying, yes, it is, because the right thing always wins, but it's his purpose, his plan, his timing, which rarely aligns with my timing, which is frustrating. My third question was, how can I sustain this? Number 1, how can I get it? Like, how can I get this wisdom? How can I have this relationship with you? Number 2, why? Why should I have this relationship with you? And then once I get it, how do I sustain it? Is it a set it and forget it situation? Can I just do these things? Can I list off all these things? Can I check the boxes? And when I'm done, everything will work out perfect. And this was the tough one because he said, wisdom, discretion, understanding, they will guard you. How do I sustain it? How do I guard it? My mom always said, like, guard your heart. Well, first of all, I got to fill up my heart with something valuable to be able to have to guard it, because I don't have to roll into 7-Eleven or to the local grocery store with some bodyguards. Why? Because nobody in my community, well, a few people do, but very few people in my community know who I am. And if I was like the most famous guy in the whole entire world, maybe I have to have security. But what my mom was saying is fill your heart up with something valuable and then protect that value at all costs. Protect your heart. Guard your heart. That's what she was said. Well, how do I guard my heart? How do I sustain this thing? Well, wisdom, right use of knowledge, discretion comes from wisdom, because you'll understand that not just because you could do it means you should do it. That's discretion. And then understanding. And having understanding in that situation to know that it's a little bit different. And so your method might not be the same, but the principle will always be the same. The truth will always be the same. That's how you sustain it. Through wisdom, discretion, and understanding. But how can we get wisdom? The beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. It's the only way that I can know what's right, God, is if I come to you. Well, if I come to you on Monday, will that help me on Friday? No, you got to come to me on Friday too. What about on Wednesday? What if I come to you on Monday and then I come to you on Friday? Will that like bookend the week? No, because Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday are all exposed. If I don't come to you, that's what he was saying. Just come to me every second of every day. And so as I finished, this is a quick interview with him. It's just 3 questions. Just 3 questions. Think of those 3 questions. Like, how? How can I have this relationship with you? Why should I have the relationship with you? And how can I sustain it? 3 questions. But what God was saying is my truth it's the same yesterday, today, tomorrow. Can I set it and forget it, God? Nope. A relationship means that you spend time with me. That you spend time with me, that you read my word, that you speak to me. You allow me to speak back by listening. Sometimes just sitting in silence. Sometimes that he'll give you the words, but other times he'll ask you to act in his peace. You see, it's incredible because in Proverbs for tomorrow, which is Proverbs 3, is something that my pops always would say to me. He would do 2 verses that he hit me with all the time. I mean, he hit me with other ones, but he hit me with these, and watch this. For my friend Rob, who called me yesterday and said, you know, did I do the right thing? I feel like I did the wrong thing. Well, how do I know what's right? Well, you'll know what's right if you just simply spend time with him. And these are the things that, and I want to encourage you, Rob, like you did what your insight told you, what your discretion told you. And that came from wisdom. And that wisdom came from your experience in that situation. You had been in that situation before. So don't think because you didn't do this exact thing, this exact technique every single time that you did something wrong. But my pops would give me these 2 verses. Share this one, this verse, actually 2 of them. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. But listen, trust, lean, submit. He will make your path straight. So if your path is not straight, it means you haven't submitted. If you haven't submitted, you haven't leaned. And if you haven't leaned, you don't trust. Trust, lean, submit, and your paths will be straight. And that's Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. My pops would always say it. And that final one that he would say was Matthew 6:33. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all else will be added on. And then he would say, boy, Did he say everything but your finances? Did he say everything but your family? Did he say everything but? No, he didn't. He said all else will be added on. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all else will be added on. This can be applied in your business, in your relationships, and it's not just some fluffy part of it, not just a philosophy, but what God is saying is, I can move mountains, but I need you to focus on me every single second of the day, and I'll show you what is right. So don't sweat the technique. It's been episode 500. I want to thank every single one of you guys for listening, for watching, for sharing, for doing all those things. Remember that Bling adds moisture, strength, and shine. We are represented by them. Every woman needs a little bit of bling in their life. This has been an incredible journey, probably one of the greatest projects that I've ever done in my entire life. And God was helping me to understand in the last couple of days, it's not about the downloads, the views, the shares, anything like that. What it's about is you doing exactly what I tell you to do on the exact time that I tell you to do it. And I will bring the increase. That's what he keeps telling me. So I want to thank you guys. You guys have been absolutely phenomenal. I love this more than anything. Episode number 500. And I'm excited for the next 100, 500 to come. You're incredible. I love you. My name is Kelly Cardenas, and I'm officially off the hot seat. Peace, love, and soul.
Nothing more on my mind. I got to shine, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make